It's the autumn of 2022, and for more than 400,000 students across the UK, they've reached their final year at university. Over half their time as students has been dominated by the coronavirus pandemic, but now it's time to think about the future and prepare for life after graduation. We're meeting 4 finalists who'll be leaving university in the summer of 2023 to find out about their career plans and how they're coping with graduate job hunting. Our first finalist from the class of 2023 is Ayten Labib. She's in her 4th year at the University of Glasgow, studying an LLB in common law. She's keeping her options open for her first role after university.
So obviously I'm looking for jobs in the legal field, but I'm also looking at different professional services firms, so maybe some consultancy firms, some human resource positions as well. I'm open to quite a few things.
Ayten's having a busy autumn, attending employers' online events.
I've been to some professional service online career talks, which have been quite insightful, I think, especially when not every firm or company can come up to the university and you can speak to them in person. It's lovely to have that virtual aspect. And it actually works quite well if you have, a busy day at uni, and to be able to fit in a virtual talk has been quite useful.
On-campus events haven't always suited Ayten.
I have been to some in-person events this autumn. Pros and cons, I think. When it comes to pros, is obviously being able to get that face-to-face interaction with companies, which is really lovely after the pandemic. But unfortunately, I think the timing of some of them is not really the best, and especially if you've got classes going on, they can be quite difficult to utilize well, just because you can't stay there for long. It could be really crowded, so that's kind of been difficulty surrounding in-person events.
She's focused on finding an employer who can help provide her with the right sort of lifestyle.
What matters most when looking at different employers is work-life balance, and being able to set boundaries, I guess, with your employers and say that if work ends at a certain time, I'm not going to be expected to keep working past that time. That really, really matters to me, especially as someone who values her free time, and being able to pursue other hobbies outside of work is really, really important to me.
Ayten is hoping her job hunting brings some good news soon.
I really hope that by February 2023, I've got some sort of an offer. I really hope that that's not too ambitious, or at least definitely at the final stages of interviews. That would be a really great place to be, I think, in Feb.
But it's not all been plain sailing.
I did not feel well prepared for the job hunting process. As a student, no one really tells you what to be looking for. You're really focused on your lectures, you're really focused on your assignments. So to even start to think about what you're doing after university is really daunting, first off. And especially after the pandemic, everyone's values have changed, and the way that work looks now is constantly changing. So with every application that I'm filling out, I'm learning something new about myself and about the companies that I want to be looking for. So it's a work in progress.
The second of our 2023 graduates is Othniel Michael. He's in his 3rd year at the University of Nottingham, studying economics. Othniel has been very busy searching for a graduate job.
I've made definitely over 60 applications, around 25 to 30 high views, if that's considered a first round, equal amount online tests, maybe 30 to 35 online tests. And in terms of people I've actually spoken to, it's actually only been two actual so people I've got to speak to. Yeah, one was a rejection.
He's hopeful for some positive news from employers.
So the year's about to end. I'm hoping maybe within the next week, even holding out for one invitation. I know some firms have got back to me saying, "Oh, we've got high volume applications. We're still processing them." So that's kind of giving me some hope, which is good, right? I think that's quite a good thing where they don't just leave you dormant, because there's actually one firm that I did the first round interview in August, and I haven't heard back. And in November they said, "We're still processing applications," and I was like, "Oh, well, at least they said that," but still. Either way, yeah, I'm holding out for maybe a couple other final round interviews to move on from the first to second round.
Othniel has worked hard to meet employers on campus.
Face-to-face time with employers is key, since I don't think anything can replace the after an event ends, that communication at the end is so valuable, and it just in of itself shows something, right? Let's say if you're, from their end, it's like, oh, you have a bunch of people show up to an event, but there's this one person, or two people, a group of people that are willing to stay longer just to have an opportunity to talk to you. So that in of itself kind of is a good signaling. And I think it's a much better signaling mechanism to like who is the best for a certain role.
However, he's uncertain of the benefit of online testing.
Online tests, as far as I know, can be gamed from the people around me. You can collaborate, do them in groups. Obviously, that gives an unfair advantage to people who can collaborate in such environments. And also, there are practice tests that are paid. As far as I've searched, there aren't any good ones that are free. And that obviously means you have if you have, the financial means to do so, you can get very good at these tests. There was one that I'm doing to get good at numerical tests. It's free, and it tracks your score. And with practice, you can get very, very good. So it's like, oh, well, it's a learned ability, and you can learn to get good at the online tests. And does that mean if you can learn to get good at online tests, are you then good at doing the job? Not necessarily.
Othniel is feeling positive about his plans for after graduation.
So in the spring, early spring, I hope to get at least one job offer, a full-time one ideally, but if not, even an internship would be really nice. And if that doesn't happen, then of course, like everyone else, you're gonna have to start the master's applications. I have thought that out. I'm not it wouldn't be like a panic master's or something I don't even want to do. I definitely want to develop my maths a bit more. So if I had to do a master's, I would do one in sort of a mathematical scheme, mathematical course or subject or topic, yeah.
The third of our graduates of 2023 is Anna Gorman-Cargill. She's a third-year student studying politics at the University of Liverpool. Once she graduates, she's planning to work in the public sector.
I think the public sector, it's not that I think that, it's perfect, it's a perfect system, or that you can make, lots of change. I think that there's a lot of barriers, but I do think that personally, I've got a sense of I want to try, and I want to do a job that is good for me and gives me a good standard of living, but ultimately I'm helping people.
There's a range of graduate jobs that Anna is pursuing.
So I've applied to the graduate scheme for the Treasury, and I've got to the written assessment stage, so that's the second stage I think, and then the third stage is the assessment centre, so I haven't completed that yet, but I've been approved for that. And then I've applied to the Ofcom Policy and Strategy graduate scheme. So I've done the first stage, and then I've got to do the next stage, which is like a blended assessment. And I'm planning to apply to the Civil Service Fast Track, but it's not open yet.
The location of her first job is an important factor for Anna.
Yeah, I'm keen to stay in the Northwest, but I'm aware of the challenges of that. I think it is frustrating coming from Liverpool, knowing that London is where it's at. And there's definitely been moves towards, because the Treasury job is Darlington or London. So I applied to Darlington, which is in the northeast. So it takes the same amount of time to get to Darlington, because with the trains it's just to London, but it is closer, technically. Yeah, and then Manchester is slightly better, but Liverpool itself, unfortunately there's not as much. So I think it depends on the job. I would move for the right job, but I'd rather that job be in Liverpool.
The cost of living crisis has had a major impact on Anna's job hunting.
I think it's become increasingly important, to be honest, as I've started to apply. Because starting salary wasn't something that I thought about last year. I honestly thought, your career's long, you can work your way up, and that's still true. But seeing a lot of people in STEM, I know you can't compare, with really high starting salaries, and I think that there is so many great, well-paid jobs in politics, but there's just less of them. So for me, it's important for me. I think that what I do is just as valuable in its own way as STEM, and I think that to have a salary that reflects it
It's definitely not the most important though, because there's schemes that I've applied for that are better paid than others.
Anna remains optimistic about her job search.
I think because a lot of the interviews for graduate schemes happen in January, by February, March, I would like to have heard back from at least one, just to give me a sense of like security of I've got a job. That would be ideal.
The last of our graduates of 2023 is Mandy Kaur, who's studying mechanical engineering at Aston University. For the penultimate year of her degree, Mandy completed an industrial placement at Bentley Motors.
So it was quite eye-opening in seeing how a company and a business functions, and especially how engineering problems are dealt with when you want to make a luxury car, because you're not just trying to make it work, you're also trying to make it look quite pretty to appeal to the customer.
And there's good news from the placement.
In terms of where I'm going next with my career, I have secured a graduate scheme with Bentley Motors, the same company I did my placement with, which is great. So I'll have a few months before I start my graduate scheme, where I'll probably just chill for a bit and go travelling, and also prepare for my graduate scheme as well.
Mandy's clear about the types of recruitment events she's preferred.
I would definitely prefer an in-person event, because then you can actually speak to the person. I feel like online in general I'm sort of against, because you don't get as much of a sort of vibe check. I know it's a weird word, but it's much better when you can meet them in person. You can ask them questions, and sometimes you might have a light bulb moment and a question will come to you because you're there and you're engaged. And then you can just ask them, and then you probably get more out of your experience as well from going there in person.
She has plenty of ideas about what's important for her first job.
An ideal employer for me would be a company that encourages you to develop both technical and social skills at the same time, because both are needed and both go hand in hand really. Being able to understand the technical and being able to communicate it as well, they go hand in hand. So I think that is something that's incredibly important, I think, from coming from an engineering perspective. I'd say the second thing that's really important for me is a company having quite a strong diversity and inclusion network, because it not just gives the opportunity for you to network, but especially if you move to a new place to join the company, it's quite nice to know that you have these groups, and it gives you the opportunity to increase your network, maybe make some friends, and it helps. I remember when I started my placement at Bentley, the diversity and inclusion network groups there really helped me feel more grounded, and it really helped at the start of my journey there.
Now she has her job confirmed, financial security has become more of a concern for Mandy.
When I got my graduate scheme offer and I received what my salary would be, I was quite pleased with it at first, but then considering the current living crisis and the cost of living in general, I do think it could be a bit more. I personally have made the decision to live at home with my parents during the graduate scheme, just so I can save some money.